place, both of those players playing Teamer Reclamation. So to the feature match area we do go. Callahan is on your left, Autumn Burchett currently on your right. We will invert those screens a little bit here as these players take a look at their opening hands. We do again want to thank our sponsors for this tournament and making this all possible. Coalesce Apparel and Design, Ultimate Guard, Carnox, and of course, Star City Games bringing you this as these players will take a look at their opening hands. Simic Ramp versus Teamer Reclamation, everybody. You see Expansion, Explosion, Mystical Dispute, all that good stuff. Things we're going to get used to here over the course of the day. I know we're going to swap these names or these screens here to make sure we're in line with the Simic Ramp versus Team Reclamation matchup. Main deck copies of Aether Gust, main deck copies of Mystical Dispute, still a thing that's happening in this format, Mystical Dispute. Clearly great in blue mirrors. You're expecting people to play a lot of Simic-based strategies, but still a fine Magic card overall. And we mentioned Ugin the Spirit Dragon kind of during our analysis of this standard format, but Ugin the Ineffable, also a card that people can play in this format, Patrick. So there might just be two good Ugins in our standard format.
Yeah, you need to have something to bridge a little bit. Ugin the Ineffable, left unchecked, still good enough to win the game against most strategies. And you can't just play all 8s and 9s. You need something kind of in the middle there to either win the game against an opponent who's not really doing anything or bridge the gap towards your larger plays.
Looks like Autumn's going to send that hand back, going to keep 6, and we are going to be underway here in game number 1. It'll be a Fabled Passage to kick things off here for Nicole. Autumn on the top. A couple copies of Shark Typhoon, Expansion, Explosion in hand. This is one of the nice things about Arena here, partner, insofar as, look, Arena does a lot of the work here for us. Players are going to be able to see each other's hands as far as viewers are concerned. You can see the players' hands. And that's actually a pretty nice benefit, I would say.
I don't know. I like guessing, but sure.
You like to work in hard mode?
Yeah.
Looks like we may have a growth spiral here on the end step by Burchett, and we will. We'll see that Callahan does have the ability to play an Aether Gust or a Mystical Dispute on this, but that is going to resolve. So what land is going to join? It'll be a Trinome, so we head back over to Burchett for their third turn of our first round here. 8 rounds, 144 players for our championship qualifier. A Royal Grazer has been found. These ramp strategies, Patrick, they have no shortage of ways to ramp, and they obviously have a fantastic threat to ramp into. So I think finding what's the clean mix of ramp spells between Growth Spiral, Cultivate, Grazer, Cavalier of Thorns, Solemn Simulacrum, like finding that right mix, I think is going to be kind of interesting over the next handful of weeks of figuring out what the best version of a ramp deck is. Yeah, no shortage of options. You see Callahan here a little bit squeezed by the fact that she's only on a single blue. I think you would have seen her pick a fight, maybe even over the Growth Spiral a few turns ago, but she's kind of opening herself up for disaster if she taps a single blue. So she's now in this holding pattern with no mana, no ability to ramp, and not really able to pick a fight over of any Burchett's cards, because that opens up the window for Burchett to resolve something really big. And here comes a Shark in for 2. Shark Typhoon, a card that has certainly made a name for itself in this standard format. A lot of players comparing that card to Decree of Justice, a card that you and I are probably familiar with because we're a little bit on the older side of the game. I'm not quite sure it's exactly that, but it's very good nonetheless.
And it has changed the terms of engagement. I think one of the ways that people used to try to beat Teamer Reclamation is just some counter spells. They really don't have that many cards that are impactful. But that's kind of off the table now because they can simply cycle Shark Typhoon and apply some pressure that way.
It looks like a blood crypt, a breeding pool is going to enter the battlefield untap, pardon me. So Callahan's going to fall down to 16. Here is a Grazer with no land to put on the battlefield. And this is the downside of Grazer. It's a fantastic play on turn number 1. It can lead to some of your most broken draws, but drawing that one in the mid game more often than not particularly good.
And now I think Burchett pulling ahead pretty comfortably here. Another threat, and now can untap with that wall permission there, a negate very good against Callahan's hand.
Yeah, you also see the copy of Expansion Explosion, something to play towards. Not sure if Expansion will be working itself into the equation this game or not, but here come the Shark tokens. Grazer will get in front of the 2/2. At least there is that for the old Grazer, as it can block one of these Sharks, but 3 damage will come through. So Callahan's going to fall down to 13. And while Autumn doesn't have an Uro going or Wilderness Reclamation going, doesn't really need to change all that much, because if Callahan doesn't really do much of anything, eventually Autumn's going to be able to win with these Shark tokens. So something's going to have to give here for Nicole.
Yeah, now Burchett also kind of threatening some inevitability of sorts here with the Castle of Vantress. Any turn where Callahan doesn't force any sort of issue, just allows Burchett to untap. Burchett can go and smooth out the draw, try to find more counter spells, more mana, or something big to resolve.
Well, here is a Cultivate. Well, will that one resolve? Is this one, do you think, that if you're Autumn, is this one worth fighting over?
I mean, with one negate in hand, I'm sort of reticent to let this resolve. Especially now that you're in a spot where you can actually pay for a mystical dispute, which there's no guarantee of down the line.
It's fair. It's interesting, right? Because you're basically positive if you're Autumn. My opponent doesn't have a land because when they play their Grazer, they didn't put a land on the battlefield. So how badly does my opponent actually need this Cultivate to resolve? And I think that's why you're seeing a little bit of some consideration here before just saying Cultivate does resolve or does not resolve via negate and pick a fight over it. And, if you're Autumn, you also don't really know what's going on in Nicole's hand right now. Now, we know that there's an Ugin the Ineffable, 2 Ugin the Spirit Dragons, a Mystical Dispute, and an Aether Gust over there, but Autumn doesn't know that. And so it looks like we're going to see a Gross Power in response, get a little bit more information, but now this does turn on, as you mentioned, Mystical Dispute.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of picking a fight over the Cultivate here because you don't exactly know what's going on in Nicole's hand, but there's no way the Cultivate is bad, and it's possible it unlocks the entire hand.
Well, I think we're going to see that fight now. So here is negate. So let's have that little battle, shall we? And it won't be much of one. Negate will take care of the Cultivate. And now here's an opt. And that top card will become the bottom one. Trinome the draw for the turn. Oh, there's a good one. We know how good Uro is.
And, Burchett here really could use a little bit more pressure, some threat to get the game over with. Once you've countered the Cultivate, you're in a position where you're vulnerable to any big plays that Callahan makes. And so trying to get this thing over with as soon as possible would be really good. Uro can help with that.
Though it looks like not going to fire off Uro now, I have to imagine maybe setting up for an expansion on the end step, or it could just be a Castle Vantress activation. Heck, even cycling the Trinome is a good place to start. That's what makes this Team of Reclamation deck so powerful, is that it has a lot of options during gameplay. Land number 6 is here for Nicole Callahan, and now it looks like it's going to be time to go towards Ugin the Ineffable. And even if this resolves, the problem here is that means that you've opened the door for a very large explosion to resolve.
Yeah, just a great play by Burchett there. They know that by playing the Uro, they're opening up to something like Aether Gust and then the opportunity for Callahan to resolve something. Instead, just pass, put the burden on Callahan to try to do something, and then come way over the top with the cards in your hand.
And that's exactly what we're about to see happen. It looks like it's going to be an explosion here from Burchett. It'll be for 4. And it looks like saying, you know what, get that Arboreal Grazer out of the way. I've got no reason to go to the Dome. And now by picking up a copy of Wilderness Reclamation and another copy of Explosion, partner, I think this game is about to be in the books.
Just a masterfully played game there by Burchett. I think fighting the over the Cultivate with the negate was great. Played a Ravnica Dual Land untapped off of the Growth Spiral to be able to play for a potential Mystical Dispute, and not playing the Uro into a face of a potential Aether Gust, instead forcing Callahan to do something, and then winning the game through their end step and their main phase.
It's an explosion for 5, an attack for 5. That equals 10, and that is a win for Autumn Burchett. Currently up a game, so we take a look at the sideboards here, and some things will be changing for both players. For this ramp strategy, we got to see some more ramping, folks. We got to see that improve for Nicole Callahan. You see the things that are worth ramping towards. Ugin, it's plural, all sorts of Ugins here. Nissa, which didn't show up in that game. It looks like some Shark Typhoons are going to come in from the sideboard along with a copy of Shifting Ceratops. And for Autumn, it's a very sideboard for your Team Reclamation players, which does not come as much of a surprise. Access to cards like Nightpack Ambusher. Looks like Uro's going to be sliding out. And there is some red removal in the sideboard, but not so much for this particular matchup. Not sure who's favored in this one, but Autumn made that game look fairly elementary and shows off some of the power of Reclamation when it does and does not have a Wilderness Reclamation, which means it's still a good deck, but when it does have Wilderness Reclamation, Patrick, it is an obscene deck, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of that over the course of the day.
I think there's just a burden on both players to get out in front of the game a little bit, because I think on both sides, once you're forced to tap out to catch up, the other deck is capable of landing cards that end the game on the spot, be it Planeswalkers, be it Wilderness Reclamation, plus a lot to do with your mana. And so I think the key part of that game was Callahan missing some land drops, not ramping, and Burchett having a couple copies of Shark Typhoon. Just kind of kicking the ball into Callahan's court and saying, you've got to do something here, or this is going to win the game by itself. And then able to fend off the key cards from Callahan and using those openings to close out the game.
Burchett able to win game number one. Going to finish up sideboarding here. We do want to make a mention that Double Master is something you can pre-order now at starcitygames.com/2XM. I know that preview season is going to be coming for that. Double the fun, double the rares. There's wild set of Magic cards coming down the pipe there from Wizards of the Coast. Again, you can pre-order your boxes and other products over at starcitygames.com/2XM. Double the rares, Patrick. Double them.
Yeah, if you like one rare, there is now 2 times as many of them.
That's just the whole. Whoever thought that up, a genius.
2 rares.
That's right. Print it. Get it out the door.
Yeah.
It'll be a main phase growth spiral here. Get a land on the battlefield right now. Now, of course, when you do resolve a growth spiral, it does vary in these Cynic matchups. You're going to see even though it is an instant, you're going to see it happen on the main phase because, Mystical Dispute kind of works itself into the equation, other counter spells, and resolving growth spiral and getting that mana advantage is a pretty big deal. So both players here, though they do have reactive elements to their deck, both are going to main phase their copies of growth spiral, get that on the battlefield, and that's a nice draw there from Callahan, picking up the 1 copy of Shifting Ceratops. That's a card that these reclamation strategies actually have some severe difficulty with.
And to speak to sort of the texture of the matchup here a little bit, the burden is to kind of get ahead a little bit and then force your opponent to play into you. And Ceratops is great at forcing the issue. Your opponent does not have much time against that card. It's not the easiest thing to answer. Sometimes your opponent just can't. And even if they can, it usually involves tapping some mana or engaging on their own main phase, and then you have an opportunity to resolve something even larger.
We are into the tank, Patrick. I don't know how much Arena you do play, but the Deadly Rope is out right now, and that's going to force a decision. It's not a comfortable feeling. It's like getting a slow play warning in real life, but somehow even harsher. So Cultivate will be the play here from Callahan. Looks like deciding between which land between the island and the forest to put on the battlefield. It's going to be the forest. Island will go to the grip, and we're going to send it back Autumn's way. After playing a land, of course.
I largely play Magic Online, where my rope is 9 minutes and 59 seconds.
Taking your sweet time. Here is a Fabled Passage.
And then Passing Priority, and then another 9 minute, 59 second rope.
It'll be a basic forest. Here comes the incredibly powerful Wilderness Reclamation. The 4-mana enchantment that has helped to define standard has resolved. Trigger will resolve as well. And now the mana is up to be able to bluff a ton of different things. That's what makes this deck so difficult to play against. Is it Expansion Explosion? Is it Shark Typhoon? Is it Nightpack Ambusher? Is it nothing at all? You have to figure that out as a player, and when you can't see your opponent's hand, it's really hard to tell. But a good way to try to work around that is say, hey, how about a super proactive threat like Shifting Ceratops, or something that's incredibly difficult to counter, like a card like Hydroid Crisis. So we'll see what route Nicole wants to go down. It looks like a dinosaur.
I mean, most of their answers that they have in general are either red removal or blue cards. So this is just not an easy card for them to play against. It's not like lights out necessarily, but a lot of their hands don't line up the right way, even if they have some of their powerful stuff going.
Shifty C. Well, we know it's not going to get countered. It can't get gusted, which is, I guess I'll call it a counter spell, albeit temporary. Opt is going to be the response here from Burchett. And Scry going to keep it on the top, idling the draw. Now it'll be a growth spiral, picking up a copy of Stomping Ground.
But one way to answer a Shifting Ceratops is just to go way over the top. You see Burchett's hand now lining up with a lot of mana, Shark Typhoon, Expansion, Explosion. Ceratops is still, it's a 4-turn clock. It takes a long time to get it over with. And if you can't answer this card, try to make the game about something else.
And it's crazy to think that a 4-turn clock is not that quick, but when in the framework of I have a Wilderness Reclamation going with a whole bunch of mana, and now it's no longer a 4-turn clock because I found a copy of Uro. 4 turns, as you mentioned, is a very long time. Burchett, looks like we're going to float some mana, taking full control with Arena. And now, are we going to cycle a Shark? Are we going to cast an Explosion for the Mythic Championship 1 winner last year? Looks like it's going to be an Explosion with some mana left over is what Burchett is considering. Remember, Burchett only has to play around 1 card right now, with only 1 mana being available, which is, of course, Mystical Dispute. Now, that's easy enough to do. Plenty of mana there. So the first explosion of this game will resolve, drawing 5 cards, dealing 5 points of damage. So it's 15 all right now.
Yeah, and Burchett here generating a lot of resources here. Another copy of Shark Time Food, another expansion explosion. May be able to just go way over the top of what Callahan's doing.
Island is what that Fabled Passage did fine. Looks like a forest to play this turn. And now, one thing that we do know here, partner, is that there is no counterspell in Burchett's hand. And as a ramp player, sometimes you have to cross your fingers and hope that something's going to resolve. And it looks like we're going to go, you know what? Let's try to resolve a Nissa who shakes the world. I need to get this onto the battlefield. And by all indications, unless my eyes are deceiving me, this Planeswalker is going to get in there.
Yeah, I think it looks like Burchett just drew into some more cantrips and more X-spells. So if this Nissa resolves, you have Brazen Borrower left over. Maybe you can go ahead and use a Petty Theft on the Wilderness Reclamation. Just try to buy yourself a little bit of breathing space here.
Looks like we're going to see an Opt in response. Maybe try to find an answer here. So Opt will resolve. Top card stays on, heads to the bottom, stomping around the draw. So that's not what the doctor ordered. So the world is about to be all shook up. We're, of course, going to plus, figure out what land we want to target. Breeding Pool would be the ideal land, but there's not one of those in the battlefield, so it's just going to be a basic island here for Nicole Callahan. So fire that baby up. Looks like we're heading into the red zone with both. And if this is successful, which it appears as though it will be, Burchett, even though they did resolve an explosion for 5, is falling down to 7 with not a lot of answers at the moment. Going to cycle a Shark Typhoon, Will Autumn. That's going to be for 0. Is now the time to fire off that copy of Petty Theft for Nicole? The answer appears to be no. So going to try to pick a better spot with that one. There's a passage. Go ahead, partner.
Well, Burchett's just in a spot now where they can just redeploy the Wilderness Reclamation and have all the mana in the world to work with regardless. So I think Callahan is correctly served here by trying to pick a better spot with the Petty Theft and maybe just bouncing the Wilderness Reclamation on end step should it break that way.
This will be in a row. Going to escape the Titan of Nature's Wrath. Draw a card, picked up a copy of Ether Ghost. That may come up in this game. Looks like there's some stacking to be done here, trigger-wise. There's the land that we want to put in. It's going to be a copy of Castle of Vantress that enters the battlefield untapped. So now Uro will head to the graveyard. Are there enough cards in the graveyard to escape it? That is the question. It looks like the answer is yes. Now, doesn't seem... Okay, so now we're definitely going to be playing Petty Theft on something.
Yeah, this is not a bad spot to bounce the Wilderness Reclamation if Burchett is assuming that they're going to get to go to their end step and cycle Shark Typhoon again or whatever the case may be. Not a bad window here to get this off the battlefield and potentially detonate whatever sequence Burchett was trying to set up.
Remember, we are playing in this tournament here with open deck lists, so players have access to each other's deck lists thanks to our friends over at MTG Melee, who's helping this whole show even be possible. So shout out to Brad Nelson and company for making what is a fantastic product for online play, revolutionizing things in the Magic industry. But this is kind of interesting insofar as both players have access to each other's lists. Now you're curious about what exactly is going on here. Now, it looks like this Wilderness Reclamation activation is actually going to resolve, so I'm a little surprised to not see anything here from Nicole with regards to this Petty Theft at any point, at least at the end of the second main phase. We're not getting it anywhere here, partner.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at 9 mana here that Burchett's getting to work with. That's a lot. It's a lot of mana.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the thought process is I'm going to petty theft away the Uro and just get that off the battlefield and just try to keep attacking, and that could be a pathway to victory. And that looks like that's the plan.
Yeah, the die is cast now. I don't know if I necessarily agree with this line, but once you're allowing Burchett to get to their end step, you have to bounce Uro. The window's closed on doing anything about the Wilderness Reclamation.
Yeah. So Uro's going to head back to the grip. Wilderness Reclamation, you got 2 mana floating, a blue and a colorless. They're from Temple of Epiphany and Blast Zone. Untap all those lands. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana on the battlefield here for Burchett, in addition to the 2 floating. Access to 11 mana, at least for right now. Doesn't mean that they have to use it, but that's what they have access to. And it looks like Ether Gust may be under consideration here. Getting a good look at what's going on with the exile in the graveyard is Nicole, and now here is a Gust. So going to target Nissa, and that's going to resolve. We do know that there is a green mana floating, so there is the ability to cast a Growth Spiral. You've got a green mana floating, and then of course an island on tap because the Nissa lands have Vigilance. Oh, there's almost a timeout burn, but no. And so now, if you do take action and put Nissa on top, you Growth Spiral, you know that you're going to draw a Nissa. But it looks like they're just going to say, hey, it's my turn, pick up a copy of Castle of Antris. So I'm a little surprised not to see a Growth Spiral played there either. Nicole looks like going to come in here with the Ceratops and the island, though perhaps we're going to start with Castle of Antris. A little unsure of herself, it appears Nicole is early off to start the day.
I mean, I think that you probably just want to, you have nothing else going on besides the Crisis, so I'm guessing you're just going to tap out for that and see what happens.
Yeah, just load it up.
No guarantee it's good, but I don't see another line with the hand. You're so unlikely to Growth Spiral into something better than a Hydra Crisis that's probably the play.
Well, let's give some beatdowns first and foremost. Shifting Ceratops, 3/3 island into the red zone. It'll be a Shark Typhoon that'll be cycled. X is going to equal 7. And this is some of the power of Shark Typhoon here, folks, because you're able to cycle this, create an instant speed blocker. Drawing a card is always nice as well. Negate is certainly not a bad pickup. But you're working towards a game now where you get to block that 3/3 because you can't block the Ceratops. And then you get to do an attack for 7, bring your opponent down to 8, and perhaps Explosion with Negate backup is able to clean this bad boy up. So it'll be a Growth Spiral before blocks. Castle of Antris has made its way onto the battlefield. A very hungry Shark is going to take care of that 3/3 island, and I think things might be slipping away here from Nicole.
Yeah, I mean, you had one of your key sideboard cards here in Shifting Ceratops, but Burchett just able to make the game about something else entirely and go way over the top.
Remember in our championship qualifier, our first one that did take place just 2 weekends ago, Autumn Burchett was able to get second place in that one with Team of Reclamation, a deck that we know that they love. They've been playing it for a very long time. And if memory does serve, even though it wasn't that long ago, I believe they played it in the World Championships in Honolulu earlier this year. So this is a deck that, Autumn has produced a ton of content about, has certainly streamed plenty, and has been playing it well for a very, very long time. Here comes Hydroid Crisis. X is going to equal 4. But with 9, let's call it 10 mana on the battlefield potentially, because we haven't played a land yet this turn. Explosion might be able to wrap this one up, but no matter how we take a look at it, I would say advantage Burchett given the texture of both players' hands.
Do we have the bar yet?
Say that again?
Do we have the bar?
Do we have the bar? Oh, the advantage bar? No, we're still
bar.
Working on that. We're still working.
Okay.
That's still in development. Here comes Uro. Unleash the Beast. It'll be a 6/6. Let's draw a card. Let's put a land on the battlefield. Another copy of Wilderness Reclamation. We might be working ourselves into easy mode here now. There's a Stomping Ground untapped. We are also playing against an opponent that's fully tapped out, so...
Not good enough at math. Not good enough at math at this hour to figure it out, but I'm assuming this is north of lethal. Find out.
Oh, well, you You've had your coffee. You should be rocking and rolling.
Come on, cup number 2.
There it is. There it is. And this isn't bad convention center coffee. I presume in your household you've got A+ coffee brewing. I
do, of course. Okay. But I also can't send anyone to get it for me. So there's push and pull.
Oh, I see. Okay. This is the problems, the difficulties of casting from home.
Yeah.
Becoming very apparent. This is Wilderness Reclamation number 2. There'll be 2 triggers.
We haven't got to the point where my kids are screaming yet. So see how that goes.
Those will be the fun interruptions taking place.
Griffin screaming and running around naked. Oh yeah, just settle in. It's coming.
Some people have asked.
8:40. 8:40. It's close. We're close.
Some people have asked to go. Some other broadcasts in the esports area and in Magic have like the commentators on the screen. Not here. No.
Oh.
You just don't know. It's an explosion for more than enough. And Adam Burchett is going to win game number 1 and 2, which means it'll be a match victory for them. They're going to kick this tournament off at 1-0, taking care of Nicole Callahan and her Simic deck. So, Team of Reclamation, we know we're going to see a decent amount of it. Don't know if we're going to see as much of it as we saw in those Players Tour online events, and of course our SCG Championship qualifier that we saw and covered 2 weeks ago. But it's here, and one of the best players in the tournament is playing it. Not much of a surprise there, correct?